right off the bat.
Thank you, Your Worship. All members are present.
Did Jesse come online? There he is. Welcome, Jesse. Item 3 is the approval of the agenda. We've got a motion to be resolved. The City Council approves the agenda as either amended or printed. Is there anybody got anything they want to add or delete from the agenda?
I'll move as printed.
Moved by Danny. Seconder. Mike. Council MacArthur. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? We'll do it that way, probably simpler. So that motion's carried then. So item 4 is the declaration of special council meeting. And the motion reads be resolved that the council of the City of St. George declares this meeting a special meeting of council in accordance with Section 7 of the Procedural Bylaw 2008-160. You're mover and a seconder for that motion.
I'll move that.
Moved by Councilor Jelly, second by.
I'll second it.
Councilor LaFerrier. So, anybody opposed to that motion? Hearing none, we'll move on. Motion's carried. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest or general nature tonight? Hearing none, we'll move on to the new business. And we've got the presentation of the 2020 capital budget presentation. I think Maura Lee's maybe going to lead off, and then we'll pass it on to Chris. Maura Lee, the meeting's yours. Oh, maybe she's not online. Are you online there, Maura Lee?
Can you hear me? Hello?
Hello.
Hear me?
Yes.
Hello.
Oh, hi there. Hello. Okay. We're good to go. I'm on my phone and watching you guys on my computer. So good evening, Mayor and Council, staff, members of the public. Tonight we're going to do a 2020 budget review. So first I'm going to start off and just give you a little bit of a background of what we've been doing since everything has happened. As you know, we passed our 2020 operating and capital budgets in principle on February 27th. However, due to the recent COVID-19 pandemic, we felt it prudent to review both our operating and capital budgets. The city manager had directed departments to go back and look at, from a capital perspective, to look at projects that could be deferred or reduced depending on the components of the actual project, and also to go back in the operating and look at revenues and operating expenditures, especially those in relation to losses and or offsetting savings in relation to facility closures. On April 28th, the departments met to discuss capital budget changes, and that's what we will be looking at tonight, is a presentation of the proposed changes that that staff have looked at and are proposing to council. We did bring this to the Corporate Services Committee last week to again discuss these changes, and received recommendation from them to move forward with the proposed changes in the capital budget. Subsequent to the operating budget, the departments have a deadline of Friday, May the 8th to provide myself and the city manager with any changes in their operating budget, and we will have a subsequent budget meeting to discuss these operating changes and provide council with an update as to where we stand in operating. So with that little background of where we are right now, I'll turn it over to the city manager, and he will go through the capital budget proposed changes.
Okay, thank you, Laura Lee. So on your screen, I believe, is this is our new draft of the 2020 capital projects. I'm going to go through each department, and I'll highlight what the recommended changes are for council's consideration. And so we'll come back to the summary sheet at the end, but I'll start with corporate services. So in corporate services, we had originally budgeted $55,000 for a website upgrade, which would have included upgrades that are required to meet Accessibility for Ontarians with Disabilities legislation. It was also an overhaul of our current website, We went back and contacted the Accessibility Directorate to see if there was opportunity for deferring that project. It is a hard date of January 1st, 2021 in order to achieve compliance with the legislation. So we looked at the overall project, and we can achieve the website upgrades to ensure compliance with AODA regulations for $15,000. There is a shared component of that between the POA court, the library, and environmental services. And so this is the breakdown. So we've revised from 55,000 down to 15,000, which is a savings of $40,000. Next, in Public Works, there was nothing in fire and emergency before, and that has not changed. In Public Works, we have a carryover project, which was the golf course road bridge work that is continuing, and that work will be completed this spring in fairly short order as soon as they can get out to do that work. So that was money that was budgeted last year and brought forward into 2020. That budget line item remains the same. The ditching project also remains the same at $30,000. And that ties in with some of our road rehabilitation work. Grant Drive Extension, we had looked at this because we weren't sure at the time whether MTO would be willing to look at the program in 2020. They have come back to us and said that they are. We didn't want to look at losing any cost sharing opportunities that we may have with the MTO on that project. So we're recommending that the $45,000 for engineering remain in the budget, and that money is coming from reserves. Landfill expansion remains the same at $75,000, and that comes from the landfill site reserve fund. The West Road culvert lining, that's a large diameter culvert at $125,000. That budget line item remains the same, with the funding coming from our OCIF formula-based funding. The roads program, as Laura Lee mentioned, both corporate services and the Public Works Committee met last week. Originally, this budget line item was $1.2 million based on the estimates at the time. There is a report that that council will consider tonight regarding the 2020 roads program. That budget line item has been reduced from $1.2 million down to $1 million, with the funding being derived from the gas tax. We did have some concerns about cash flow with the gas tax. We currently have 600,000, give or take, in reserve, but our 2020 allocation, 300,000 becomes payable in July and about 300,000 payable in November. And so we are monitoring that for cash flow purposes as well. But we believe we're going to be able to manage that cash flow. We did add $20,000 to the budget for Radley Hill Road crossing engineering. This relates to some discussions that we've had with the ONR, both in the past and most recently. There is a funding opportunity through Transport Canada, which is an 80% funded program for railway crossing infrastructure. And there's some work that we would do there, both at the crossing and with the signals. So we've budgeted $20,000 for some of the engineering costs that would be incurred in 2020. The application deadline is in August this year. The work would be carried out in 2021 or 2022. In deferred projects, so when you go to the bottom of that sheet, in the original capital budget, we had included $85,000 to move the lights at the Northdale Manor to the crosswalk at the Col St. Croix in Healeybury. And we were going to install a similar crosswalk system to the one at John Street at the Northdale Manor. That program is being recommended for deferral to 2021. as it was a funded project, entirely funded by the city. There was nothing coming from reserve funding for that. The Roy Bridge in Muno Park Road is a shared project. The Township of Harley has applied for funding through the ICIP program, which is a federal provincial cost sharing program. That application is still under consideration, and even if we did get word on the work, the engineering has to be done beforehand, and the work would probably not be undertaken until 2021. So we're recommending that that project be deferred. And Albert Street reconstruction was deferred during the original budget discussions. Any questions on Public Works capital program? So overall, that budget goes from 1.92 million down to 1.405 million. In recreation service, so the first line item is the recreation master plan, which is a carryover from last year, and work is continuing on that. Last Thursday, they held a well-attended consultation on the preliminary findings of the plan. So that is continuing, and we anticipate that everything is on budget and on time. And so we're looking forward to that. That remains unchanged. And we kept the Halebury Arena dehumidifier in the budget. The roof at the Halebury Arena is being replaced, and the dehumidifier goes hand in hand to actually help from a preventative maintenance perspective. So we've kept the $60,000 in the budget. The items that we're looking at from a deferral perspective are the splash pad project at a cost of $522,000. Matt Boehm, our Director of Recreation, has been working with the splash pad committee, and they have been kept apprised of what our recommendations are. There was still a shortfall in the funding that needed to be that was required for that project of about $50,000. It's a very difficult time to go out and solicit to our local businesses for additional fundraising efforts at this time. It's also a cash flow issue for us. So the Rotary Club has pledged $100,000. We've received, I believe, $30,000 already from them. One Foot Forward has also pledged $50,000, but we haven't received all of those monies yet. So the city would have been cash flowing quite a bit of this project, almost $180,000 in cash flow until those pledges came in. And given our current cash flow concerns, this was a project that we looked at recommending for deferral into 2021. Matt also contacted the Ontario Trillium Foundation regarding the $150,000 grant that was approved, and they are willing to extend that program or that grant into 2021, which is good news for what we want to do. And so there is a resolution later on in tonight's meeting dealing with that extension. We also are recommending a deferral of gym equipment in the amount of $10,000. So the recreation services capital budget is reduced from $637,650 down to $105,650. Next, we have the property maintenance budget. The New Liskeard Library continues, work continues there on the upgrades at the former New Liskeard Medical Center. We are currently still on pace for having those renovations completed this month, and our target date for moving items over into the new facility will be in the first 2 weeks of June. That budget is currently, that project is currently in budget, and we're monitoring it closely. It is a tight budget. Currently, we have a little bit of room left in the budget, but we're about $90,000 right now is not committed out of that overall $1.7 million budget. So 1 million this year, 700,000 was in last year's budget. We're monitoring that closely and feel confident that we are going to be able to come in the 1.7 million, and perhaps a little bit lower than the 1.7. The Hillabray Arena roof replacement, that was originally budgeted at 585,000. That project was tendered, and the tenders came in less than our original budget estimate. So we have amended the budget accordingly. And the Hillabray Fire Station roof repair, this is an addition to the budget in the amount of $20,000. And that's as a result of us recommending the deferral of the Hillabray Station construction project. That was budgeted at 1.5 million and was funded through a combination of reserves and city costs. So again, for cash flow purposes, we're recommending that the fire station project be deferred for consideration during the 2021 budget deliberations. The property maintenance overall budget then has been reduced from $3,085,000 down to $1,520,000. Any questions on property maintenance? In fleet, yes?
I was just going to say that the 20,000 just covers some of the minor repairs to that existing fire hall.
Yes, sorry. So there is some leakage in the roof at the Hillabray station, and so that $20,000 has been added to the budget in order to undertake those repairs, and they are based on some preliminary estimates that we've received. Any other questions on property maintenance? Fleet, so the 3/4 ton was a carryover, a truck was a carryover project from last year. That vehicle has now been received and is in service. The spray patcher was a project that was recommended early on in the budget process and received approval prior to the budget in principle being adopted. The funding from that is derived from the efficiency funding that we have received from the province. So we received just over $700,000 in efficiency funding, and that $265,000 is being derived from that program. And the spray patcher should be arriving shortly and will be put into service in very short order once it's received. And then we had the blower for the trackless, which has remained in the budget as well, with the funding coming from reserves. The overall fleet budget then has been reduced. Originally, the spray patcher quote was $340,000. After that had gone out for request for quotations, it came back in less than the budget estimate. So it's been reduced from $340,000 to $265,000. Resulting in the fleet budget being reduced from $395,485 down to $320,485. In transit, so originally our transit estimate was $457,000. We did tender that project with Metrolinx, and it came in less than our original budget estimate. So we have based the cost on actuals at this point of $433,500. That project is funded through our ICIP funding for public transit. Originally in the budget, we had other projects totaling $167,367, and those included some upgrades to the fare system, looking at an app that people could use to track when the bus was coming, whether it was early on time or late. Those projects we're recommending for deferral to a future year. Again, those projects are partially funded through the ICIP program. We are deriving the city's portion, 26.67%, through our provincial gas tax. So you'll see a breakdown here In the ICIP, the province is providing 33 1/3% funding at 144,000. The federal government is providing 40% funding of 182,800, and we're going to use a significant portion of our provincial gas tax, 115,000 out of our $137,000 allotment will be used to cover our portion of the transit bus purchase in 2020. And as I mentioned, the other projects we will look at a future year. The ICIP funding program is a 10-year program, so we have a lot of time to really address other infrastructure needs within the transit system over the next 10 years. Any questions on transit? So overall, that budget has been reduced from $624,367 down to $433,500. In environmental services, we originally had 2 projects in this budget. One is remaining, that is the Diamond Looping project at $1.1 million. That is a totally city-funded project at this time, taking almost $575,000 from reserves and $525,000 through the operating budget transfer. The Haileybury Wastewater Treatment Plant Rehabilitation Program. This is an important program. We do have some regulations that we need to make sure we're adhering to federal regulations. But that project is still under consideration for the ICIP program for wastewater facilities, water and wastewater facilities. And so we haven't heard anything back on that funding. Realistically, even if funding was approved shortly, we wouldn't actually do the physical construction work until 2021. So we're recommending that that project be deferred. The 2020 environmental capital budget then is reduced from 2.5 million down to 1.1 million. So Logan, if I can get you to go back to the first page, which is the summary of project. So this is the overall summary of our capital program that we're recommending today. The original budget, and you can see in the resolution that was presented, the original budget for a combined general capital and environmental capital totaled $9,218,112. With the recommended deferrals and adjustments to the budget, we are recommending a revised capital budget of $4,900,245, which is a difference of $4,317,867. I realize that a lot of these projects are simply deferrals, but given the current financial strains that the municipality is facing, I've talked to council before about even just on our operating side. Right now, we're losing about $90,000 a month in revenue streams, be it user fees through our recreation facilities, various permitting and licensing. Transit is a big one at about $32,000 a month in lost transit fares. So we're losing a lot of significant revenue. We've introduced a program to help our residents. If they're unable to pay their May installment, they won't have to pay any penalty. So that has been implemented and may or may not have an impact on our cash flow. It's staff's recommendation that the revised capital project, all of the projects are still very important, but we believe by looking at these deferrals will give us some breathing room in order to address our other financial challenges as we work through the remainder of 2020. So I'd be pleased if anybody has any general questions or comments on the proposed 2020 capital budget, and there is a recommendation that we are hoping council will consider tonight.
Questions, comments? Councilor Whelan?
Yeah, if I may, just quickly, first, thanks to staff, Laura Lee, and all the department heads for the efforts that you put into this. It's greatly the process wasn't easy, and this makes it that much more difficult. So, hats off to you all for the effort you put in. The only question I have is, we spend a lot of time now talking about restarting the economy, and the province and the feds might use provincial infrastructure as a good boost to getting the economy going again. So all these deferred projects, will we be able to throw them out as shovel ready if new programs are created?
That is one of my hopes. I think there are
We're already engineered, so that's ready to go. So I mean, if we do get the funding for that, we should be able to go ahead with that program for sure.
yes, and that application is already in. And so on that particular one, I am hopeful. I mean, I think there's hope for our future, and that by taking a bit of a pause now in 2020 with our capital program, there's some opportunities that I see for us in 2021 and 2022, and I'm hoping that our provincial and federal partners will come to the table as well and help with that. So I think it's a good point Councillor Whalen makes, and certainly there are some candidates in this list that we're looking at deferrals for some stimulus funding should it become available.
Okay, and just as a follow-up to that, the Association of Municipalities Ontario and Federation of Canadian Municipalities have put a proposal into the federal government. If the mayor or MP, it's always good if we can push these projects through our own local representatives as well. So anybody who's speaking with John Van Toff or Anthony Rhoda, use all the support you can get.
So do Jeff or do Danny? Jeff, you got a comment or?
So there are the capital projects. It really, gives us a little bit more flexibility to deal with some of the challenges we're aware of right now. We don't know when to start. When we're going to start to open things up a little bit. I know, provincially, the premier has done a few things, but for us, it's still status quo. There's still some unknowns. We're not sure, what services are going to be opening or even allowed this year, including minor hockey. So that creates some really big challenges for us. That could impact some revenue streams, as late as October, November, and December of this year. So the more flexibility we have, the better. So thanks for all the efforts put into this, and I do support this recommendation. Thank you.
Other comments, questions? Council? I guess I'll read the motion and you can have a mover and a seconder. We do have a draft motion, whereas council adopted in principle the 2020 operating and capital budget for the city of Temiskaming Shores on February 27th, 2020. And whereas the COVID-19 pandemic has resulted in financial hardships for businesses, organizations, and residents, and whereas the city of Temiskaming Shores has also experienced revenue losses and experienced operating costs due to COVID-19 pandemic, now therefore be resolved that the council of the city of Temiskaming Shores hereby approves a revised 2020 general and environmental capital budget in the amount of $4,900,245 as follows. And you've got the chart there in front of you there. So do we have a mover for that motion?
I'll move that motion, Your Worship.
Let's see, Councillor Jelly has his hand up there as well. So I'll have Councillor LaFerrier move it. Councillor Jelly can second that motion.
Yes.
Any last comments, questions?
Yeah.
Councillor Foley?
With the efficiency funding, we used 265 for the sprayer. What did we use what did we put the rest of it to, or do we still have that?
So we still have that funding available to us. I think that relates as well to some of what Councillor Whalen was mentioning. When we look at getting things restarted again, there will be some funding available there that we still have there was no deadline to spend that efficiency funding. So we had originally earmarked that for the Haileybury Fire Station. And so that funding will still be there, and council during their 2021 deliberations can determine if they want to continue using it for that project, or it could be available for other projects depending on what we talk about during the 2021 budget process. So the money is still there.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments before we vote? Is anybody opposed to this motion? I will consider that carried unanimously. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Item B is the memo 005 2020 PW, the 2020 Roads Rehabilitation Program. And I don't know whether we can put that up on the screen as well, but I'll read the motion. Be resolved, the Council of the City of Mississauga Shores hereby acknowledge receipt of memo 005 2020 PW, and the Council approves the 2020 Road Rehabilitation Program as detailed in Appendix 1 to memo 005 2020 PW to an upset limit of $1 million as approved in the revised 2020 capital budget. So, any can we get a mover and seconder first, Barry?
I'll move it.
Moved by Councilor Jelly.
I'll move
Seconded by Councilor Foley. Okay, Chris.
Logan, are you able to put the roads list up?
Oh, I believe Brad is navigating the screen.
There it
Brad,
is.
okay, thank you.
So we've got some roads there that were double surface treating and some that were actually super paving. They include quite a list there to just slightly under $1 million. Chris, the other comments?
Oh, I just thought for the public, if they, Doug Walsh, I believe Doug is on the line as well. He may have some comments, but I just thought it for the benefit of the public, they may want to look at some of the work that that's being proposed. It's still quite a bit of work that's going to be undertaken in 2020, and looking at addressing some of the issues that we have. You know, when you look at Whitewood Avenue, I believe is on there from Paget Street all the way to the ONR crossing. I mean, that's something that a lot of people are going to see right away, work that's being done, as well as a number of other streets that should have a real impact in a lot of areas within the municipality.
Yeah, we've got some streets in North Cobalt. We've got Elliott Street in Haileybury there. We've got Moore Landing Road going out as well that we pulverized last fall. We're going to surface treat this summer, as well as, like you say, parts of Armstrong Street and Whitewood Avenue as well. So,
Is Doug Walsh with us tonight?
Yes, he is.
did you have any comments at all, Doug?
I just
Go ahead, Mr. Kelly.
Go ahead, Doug.
Okay, just perhaps you need to give a brief synopsis on why these particular roads were picked with streetscape and what have you, just for the benefit of the people listening in.
So approximately 3 years ago, the city of Temiskaming Shores approved the use of a system called StreetScan, scanned all of our asphalt surface roadways, and through that process, we were able to come up with pavement condition indexes, and that is something that is used through the asset management plan. On the screen, you can see the number of those roadways have a PCI or pavement condition index of 50 or less. That was probably one of the driving factors that we used, as well as traffic volumes and the use of the roadways. I would point out that the last 4 road sections on that list, Armstrong Street, Whitewood Avenue, Mount Landing Road, and Silver Center Road, were former provincial highways or connecting links. The total length of roadway that we will be addressing this year is about 8.7 kilometers. 7.2 kilometers of that 8.7 was actually former provincial highways that we haven't spent a lot of money on since 1996-97. This year we will be spending $700,000 on those roadways. The provincial argument at the time when they transferred them was that they provided a little bit of seed money for those, but it wasn't supposed to cost the municipality a lot of money. The balance of the roadways that we were doing totaled roughly 1.5 kilometers, or just around a mile. That's $300,000 we're spending on roadways that the municipalities, prior to downloading, were actually responsible for. So basically, 3/10 of the roadways we would have probably gotten no funding from originally, and $700,000 that we're spending this coming year were former ministry sections of roadway that we would have got upwards of 90 to 100% funding on. As Mayor Kidd has said, we will be using various treatments, single surface treatment on Silver Center Road, double surface treatment on Mount Landing Road, some of the other sections, and hot mix paving. We will be milling some of the existing asphalt to replace the top 2 inches on road sections like Armstrong Street from the mall corner into where we started last year, as well as Whitewood Avenue. Whitewood Avenue, we will be doing only the 2 traveled lanes, the 2 center lanes going up Whitewood. Parking lanes are in relatively good condition. It's a process that we used similar in Main Street Hill in Hillsbury 2 years ago. We do have a couple of residential streets that are in bad condition, and we will be addressing those as part of our plan as well.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions, comments?
I have one other comment, if I can, Your Worship.
Go ahead.
Just pointing out that Armstrong Street, the section we're doing, I've had questions about why we didn't do it when we did the first section. Doug Walsh, correct me if I'm wrong, but it boils down to the mechanism that's in the road for the lights at Highway 65 East and Armstrong Street North, correct?
That is correct. There are detection loops embedded in the asphalt. We have spoken with the Ministry of Transportation, and they will be going to a system similar to that we are using at the Whitewood and Armstrong corner, as well as the Paget Lakeshore Whitewood corner. They will be going to a camera for detection.
Thank you.
Any other comments? If not, we got a motion moved by Councilor Jelly, second by Councilor Foley. Anybody opposed to that motion being passed tonight? Hearing none, we'll consider that motion passed. Thank you. Moving on to item C, the Rotary Splash Pad, the Ontario Trillium Foundation Funding Agreement. And I have a motion whereas Council considered Memo 007-2020 RS at the April 21st, 2020 regular Council meeting and direct staff to investigate the deferral of the Rotary Splash Pad project to 2021. And whereas Council adopted a revised 2020 capital budget that is May 4th, 2020 regular Council meeting, which included the deferral of the Rotary Splash Pad project. Now therefore be resolved that Council of the City of Temiskaming Shores hereby direct staff to advise the Ontario Trillium Foundation of its decision to defer the Rotary Splash Pad project until 2021 and respectfully request a 1-year extension to the grant project CP 105993. Moving for that motion, Councilor Ferrier. Seconded, Councilor Whalen. Any questions, comments, Councilor MacArthur?
Yes, I just wanted to say to the folks that are watching tonight and the media that this project, when we started talking about it, everybody was, overwhelmed. And unfortunately, we couldn't get everything done in 19, and obviously we're not going to get it done in 20. But I want to assure everyone, and I think council and mayor and council have been behind it. And this project, this splash pad, is coming to the city, and it will be a success. And hopefully next year will be the year if everything comes together. But we're all on side, and we want to thank you for your patience. This is a real, I think it's a treat for the area. Thank you to the Rotary Club for sponsoring this.
And I'll thank all the people who have donated funding towards that as well. So
That for sure.
if we can raise that last $50,000, that'll be a great project to get going next year. So, any other comments? Is there any opposition to that motion? I'll consider that carried unanimously as well. And if there's no other business, we do have a motion to be resolved at City Council hereby adjourns at 6:41. Mover and seconder. Moved by Councilor Ferrier, second by Councilor MacArthur. So, anybody opposed to adjourning? Somebody opposed to it.
The future councillor.
I will consider that motion carried. We're adjourned. We'll see everybody tomorrow night at 6 o'clock for our regular council meeting tomorrow night. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Good night, everybody.
Bye.
Good night.